Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. You can also check out OppermanReport.com. That's our radio show website where we have a members section with special exclusive content you can only get at OppermanReport.com. And our archives are free. You can get our archives are free if you go to Spreaker.com. You follow the show. You could sign up instantly with Facebook. And check out a previous interview we did with our guest. He's a former police commissioner of Seattle, Norm Stamper. He's got to go to normstamper.com. That's his website. His most recent book is Protect and Serve, How to Fix America's Police. That's not the most recent. The most recent is Breaking Rank, a top cop's expose of the dark side of American policing. Norm Stamper, are you there?
I'm here. Yep.
Did I describe you correctly? Former police chief, right?
Yes, that's correct. Commissioners in the East and chiefs in the West.
That's right. That's right. Well, remind the audience, tell them who is Norm Stamper.
I was a police officer for 34 years, born and raised in San Diego, a member of that department for 28 years, was the number 2 guy when I got recruited for the police chief's job in Seattle, which I successfully competed for and was appointed in February 1994, and served for 6 years there. And since the day of my retirement, I've been writing and consulting.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on this week, right? In fact, the past few days.
Sure. With
George Floyd and the protests and the police reaction to the protest and the military response. What, off the top of your head, what is your first reaction to what's going on?
First reaction really dates to the moment that police officer in Minneapolis, in front of the whole world, committed the crime of murder. I'd like to pretty that up a little, but I don't think that's possible. I think what we saw as that man kept his knee on the neck of a fellow human being for almost 9 minutes, with the last couple of minutes, the man being completely unconscious. What we saw was a barbaric and criminal act. And then, of course, what we have also seen is that the entire country seems to have been captivated and appalled by what they saw, and very much, I think, in need of a new direction for American law enforcement. I think it's reached a critical mass, a point at which pleas and calls for reform are now being heard, and I think they will be heeded.
Some interesting things with this case. One is there appears to be a relationship. They both worked at the same business as security guards at a nightclub, so must have known each other. Do you see like a conflict? How would you order your officers to proceed if they're going to respond to a crime and they see someone they know?
Well, in theory, there ought to be no difference. Obviously, if there's a relationship of familiarity and maybe even a cordial relationship of familiarity, that's going to figure into the interaction and how they behave toward each other. But I'll be frank with you, I hadn't heard that they knew each other before this incident back on the 25th of May. So, all I can say is whether you know a person or not, the Constitution is binding on you as a police officer, and you've got an obligation to protect life and property and God forbid, not take it unless it's absolutely necessary.
Would it be a wise safeguard in a situation like that you'd be required to call in a supervisor?
In general, I would say no, up until the point at which force is being applied.
Okay.
There are all kinds of there will be for a long time a lot of second guessing, but there will also be critiquing and debriefing and an effort to really study what happened in this particular case. And to some eyes, including my own, it's pretty easy. We had a police officer who was convinced that he was doing the right thing and that he needed to be left alone to continue doing the right thing. I think he basically told his fellow officers, I got this. I'm taking care of business. And, of course, he was. And the result was tragic.
It just came out today, and I know you're busy doing interviews. I got your book solid. Thank you for coming on and making time for me. I appreciate it very much. But
My pleasure.
Two of these responding officers, one, it was his first day and another, it was his third shift.
Well, I got to tell you, once you become a police officer, whether you've been around for 30 years or 30 minutes, the expectations are likely to be the same. The protection and preservation of human life, and every officer has heard this from day one in the police academy, is top priority. Of all of the duties, tasks, responsibilities that fall to police, and it's such a difficult job, but of all those duties, number one is the protection and preservation of human life. And so, my gosh, I had not heard that we had such inexperienced police officers at the scene. That would certainly figure into the motivations of the officers who are reduced to witnessing this act rather than jumping in and putting an end to it. We said, we meaning a number of my fellow police officers at the time in the early 90s, took the view that we expressed publicly that the officers who witnessed the Rodney King incident in Los Angeles had an affirmative duty to stop it. And they failed. They failed miserably. The one thing that did accomplish, we thought, perhaps foolishly at the time, was send a message to police officers throughout the country. If you witness a fellow officer engaged in misconduct of whatever description, but certainly of violent proportions, you have an affirmative duty to intervene. And not one of those officers did. Now, one attempted, as I understand the account of the incident, to suggest that maybe this man should be turned over. He was concerned about, among other things, positional asphyxiation, that sort of thing. There have been a lot of in-custody deaths at the hands of police in situations in which the police, attempting to do a job, do it the wrong way. And one of the things that we know about somebody who may or may not have ingested certain drugs, who may or may not present a pre-existing medical condition, is that there are ways to handle people in distress, in medical distress. And one officer raised his voice about that. The officer doing the damage did not respond to it, did not do what he should have done.
What do you, now? A lot of people will say, "Well, we need new training. We need extra training." But in over there in Minneapolis, in their training that's an allowed use of force to use a knee restraint on a person's neck. That's part of the training.
What I've heard is that they train knee restraint on the back, not the neck. And if you've got somebody on his stomach, his lungs are compressed to begin with, lying on the asphalt, flat on the street. And then you apply all the pressure of this officer's weight, essentially, through that knee on his neck. That's a formula for disaster, for tragedy. It was terribly, terribly sad and terribly disappointing. One of the things that came up for me is, when are we going to learn?
Yeah.
I mean, we have abundant examples of what happens exactly in those circumstances. And this is not a rookie cop. He may have been surrounded by younger officers, but Derek Chauvin had been around for almost 20 years, as I understand it.
You know, Norm, I just want to remind the audience that I have another client in Las Vegas, Byron Williams, 50 years old, stopped for riding a bike without a headlight on it. Same thing, on body cam, on police body cam. Knees in the back, yelling, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." His death was ruled a homicide by the medical examiner, and the DA over there has chosen not to prosecute so far.
Well, one of the things that I think needs clarification for all of us is that a homicide is nothing more or less than a death at the hands of another. that is what is called a homicide. The question then becomes, was it a criminal homicide? And if it was it murder? Was it manslaughter, non-negligent manslaughter? If it was murder, to what degree? First, second, or third, depending on your jurisdiction. So there are all kinds of points of law that are important. But any death at the hands of another is considered a homicide.
Norm, did you find it odd that when the officer had his knee to the neck, right, that usually when you see a situation like that, you're watching cops, you're watching these live PDs, that the other officers are also swarmed over the guy. You know what I mean? And in this case, he had his knee on his neck for 9 minutes, like you said, almost 9 minutes, with his hand in his pocket. Have you ever seen anything like that before?
I have never seen anything like that before. I will tell you that my visceral reaction, watching the expression on the officer's face, was repulsion. He looked as casual as one could look under those circumstances. Hand in the pocket it just defies belief. We're talking about a man who is in very severe medical distress, and he is shouting, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." Now, you got a bunch of cops in this country who will say, if he can say it, he can breathe. If he can utter it, he can breathe. I will spare you the graphic example, but it is possible for me, in talking with you right now, I've tried this, to hold my breath, in other words, not take a breath, but also talk for a fairly significant period of time. It's possible that somebody who literally can't breathe can, on exhalation, say, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe." And if there's a temporary, tiny moment in which the pressure is relieved, to suck in another breath and say it again. But that's what happened to Eric Garner in New York. It has happened throughout the country. And it's time we as a society, and certainly it's time we as the institution of policing, learn that if somebody's saying to you, "I can't breathe," take it for real. Take it on face value. Okay, this man is saying he can't breathe. I have an obligation here. And that obligation could easily result in saving rather than taking a life.
Now, Mr. Stamper, when we see these cases like Eric Garner, like you mentioned, because there's people standing around filming it, and often you hear them screaming, "Hey, you're going to kill the guy. Hey, the guy's dying." What responsibility do those people have, and how do you recommend that they intervene to save a life when they see a life being taken?
Well, what I know about you, which is of course from a distance, I don't think either one of us would hesitate to intervene if we concluded that a man's life is in imminent danger, and I'm going to intervene. The average citizen in a situation like this does not have that responsibility. So let's forget about the legal aspects of it. There's a moral obligation, I think, to intervene. On the other hand, what do you think would have happened to somebody who had pushed the officer off of George Floyd? What do you think that individual's chances would be for coming out the other side of that interaction, number one, alive, and number two, not in jail?
Yeah.
And so I think people have seen too many videos. They have seen officers in tense situations attack, and in some cases unmercifully. So I get it. I totally understand why a citizen wouldn't do that. What I will never understand is why a person in a police uniform with a badge on his chest and a gun on his hip, who has raised his or her right hand and sworn to uphold the Constitution, would allow that to take place and function only as a bystander, as a witness. It did happen during the Rodney King attack by 4 officers, any one of whom probably, had he decided hey, wait a minute, we're going too far. Let's just stop. 4 against 1. He's unarmed. I think we can handle this without administering such a severe and long beating. And the same would apply in any other set of circumstances.
You know, we had another case here in Las Vegas. A gentleman was walking through a parking lot, and he saw the cops beating up a guy. And he called 911. And 911 dispatched those very same cops that were beating up the other guy, and they came over and beat him up. Now, it would seem that there should be a policy in place, you know what I'm saying, that when you're calling up to report police misbehavior, that those same cops don't come over and respond to that complaint.
The policy should be crystal clear, articulated, understood by everybody, and then enforced. And that policy obviously would be, where is this? Where are you? Where is this happening now? And a supervisor is dispatched immediately, but also fellow officers from outside that area, on the assumption that if somebody's getting beaten up at the corner of a certain intersection that is known to be on a certain patrol beat, you're probably not going to dispatch the patrol officer or officers from that immediate area under the circumstances you just described.
Now, Norm, you were the police chief, right? So now, how are these policies decided? Who has more influence on the police chief to create and implement these policies? Is it the local government officials? Is it the local business leaders, community leaders, churches? Who has the most influence in reality over the police chief?
In reality, and I can say this with some degree of confidence, it depends. There are 18,000 police departments in this country. Every one of them is essentially independent of all of the others. Every one of them was established within the context of a political framework and all kinds of civic influences and so forth, the history, the culture of that particular city or county. And what you have is great variation between and among American police departments. So today it's common to talk about standards. We need standards that everybody understands and is obligated to uphold. Well, how do you pull that off given our system of government, our system of law enforcement? But that can easily be used as a cop-out. I hope not to collude with that kind of thinking. What I would say is you've got a mayor, you've got a city council, you possibly have a city manager, depending on your form of government. They are influential, but they don't set specific police policy. If there's been a crisis, if there's been a controversy, they may dictate a particular policy. For example, during the 60s and 70s, it was common for municipal police departments to spy on, let's say, anti-war demonstrators or the Black Panther Party or. So some of that spying was extra legal, a nice way of saying it was criminal and it was unlawful. And so city managers and mayors and city councils and boards of supervisors essentially said, we can't have this any longer, and here is our policy direction. And the police chief, the legal advisor, the Police Officers Association or union is also at the table in those conversations. Out the other end comes a policy. It is then enforced by the top administrator of the department and all supervisors and managers between him or her and the cop on the beat. So it's a kind of a messy process with lots of room for variation, but at the heart of it, policy is set by stakeholders, and it's considered axiomatic that a stakeholder is a cop on the beat, represented by the union, the supervisors and managers between the streets and the corner pocket or the chief's office, and of course the chief and his or her staff as well. But you can't ignore elected officials. You can't ignore civic leaders. You can't ignore grassroots community activists because they're going to make their voices heard in a free and democratic society. In the end, today, and I think we're at a crossroads, today is still generally the police chief or the sheriff who sets the policy.
Well, Norm, obviously we got a broken system here, right? And
yes.
Norm Stamper, you wrote the book To Protect and Serve, How to Fix America's Police. How do we fix it? You wrote the book. How do we do this, bro?
We establish an authentic, and I emphasize that word, partnership between community and police. I'm not talking about some cosmetic PR version of partnership. That word is thrown around all the time. Well, we're partners with our community, or community activists saying, well, we want to be partners with the police. Well, how would that partnership really look? To me, if it is worthy of the name partnership, it's a 50-50 proposition. Now, many of my former colleagues, then and now, would say, there's Stamper again. You know, he's talking about us giving over some of our power to the citizens. And I absolutely am talking about that. Ours is a democratic society. We have, in every community, we have, to overgeneralize, and I emphasize that, pro-police forces, anti-police forces. We have blind, loyal supporters of the police. We have critics who, wouldn't spend 5 minutes trying to study what's actually wrong and what we could do better. So we've got it's America. So we've got a real mix of people who do have a stake in the quality of public safety, the effectiveness of public safety, and the Constitution, and particularly the Bill of Rights, and the responsibility of all, but especially those wearing uniforms and working the streets, to protect and defend the Constitution, the due process rights of all of their fellow citizens. So I take the view that we must start with the proposition that the police have got to concede the reality of today's circumstances, and that it does mean the system is broken, and that efforts to improve it or to fix it have failed for generations, not for last 5 years, 10 years, not since Ferguson, not since Rodney King, but in fact from the very beginning of the institution. So, and that begins to suggest, well, maybe we didn't get it right when we put it all together. And I take that view. We attempted to model ourselves in America after the British system of policing, which took the form of the Metropolitan Police Act of 1829. And I promise this will be my last history lesson for the moment. But the idea was Philadelphia, New York, Boston, some of our earliest big cities experiencing all the ravages of the Industrial Revolution, all the noise and chaos and crime that had burgeoned during that era, was really demanding that you create an organized police force, not just people who turn the lights on at night and snuff them in the morning, but no longer would we be able to handle the public safety demands through a watchman-style policing. So they sent ambassadors, emissaries to Great Britain. They sat down with Sir Robert Peel, the Home Secretary, who over 7 years put together the plan for organized policing, which ultimately became the Bobbies, named for Sir Robert Peel. And while that system is far from perfect, they built in safeguards that we Americans did not. From the very earliest moments, we were afflicted by a political spoils system. People were buying beats. Individuals who were upwardly mobile in their police departments were paying, for example, $15,000 for a captaincy. Now, given the amount of money that you could steal, if you were of poor character, $15,000 to buy a promotion was a sensible investment from an economic point of view. So we come from a tainted history. And over the years, we've seen efforts to reform policing, but many of them did not take into account that we created the wrong mechanism for public safety. We literally could not have picked a worse model, paramilitary, bureaucratic, isolated and insulated from the community, top-down command and control systems. I could go on and on. I promised earlier I'd stop that, so I will stop here by saying the current system doesn't work. It needs to be re-engineered. The way, I think, to make that happen is to create this genuine partnership between community and police and say, look, it's like changing a tire on a car at 70 miles an hour. Our system is broken. We can't just close up shop, although there are advocates of that. We're going to continue to do police work, but let's get police and community together and design a new system of law enforcement, public safety from the ground up. And that's what I advocate.
We're going to have to take a commercial break, but Norm Stamper, thank you so much. That was incredible, a history lesson. I didn't know any of that. We'll be back with more of Norm Stamper, former police chief of Seattle, Washington, right after these messages. He's written the books To Protect and Serve, How to Fix America's Police, and the other one is Breaking Rank, a Top Cop's Expose of the Dark Side of American Policing. You can find him at normstamper.com. And you can hear he's a brilliant guy. I really encourage people to go out and check out these books. Breaking Rank, a Top Cop's Expose of the Dark Side of American Policing. And the other one is To Protect and Serve, How to Fix America's Police. We'll be back with more of Norm Stamper after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here with Norm Stamper, the former police chief of Seattle, Washington, author of 2 excellent books, To Protect and Serve, How to Fix America's Police. And the other one is more recent, Breaking Rank, a Top Cop's Expose of the Dark Side of American Policing. You can also find his website at normstamper.com. Now, Norm, before you mentioned in passing that when you're sitting around that table there, the big mishmash of everybody jumping in there trying to make the chief create policy, I'm sure at the time you wanted the room a lot smaller, you know? But you mentioned the police unions, right? Now, what do you make of this, man? Because they got a lot of power. The cop doesn't care. He has a lawyer provided for him. Not a dime's going to come out of his pocket personally. Power of police unions. Even the mayor of New York, de Blasio, was afraid of the police union. You know, what do we do?
Well, let's be real clear that police unions are powerful. Once again, 18,000 agencies. Theoretically, there could be that many police unions. But in point of fact, collective bargaining is, of course, what brought unions together in the first place in general. And police unions were a response to what I would consider to be some myopic and these draconian administrative practices early on in the life of the institution. So you had police chiefs who are saying, it's busy out there. You're going to work 7 days a week and 12 hours a day and so on and so forth. So for the very same sort of bread and butter reasons that other unions have organized and in the effort to achieve some level of justice for rank and file employees, those unions came along and they got stronger and stronger and stronger. And one of the reasons that happened, frankly, is because cities or counties would say, well, this fiscal year, we just don't have the money that we know you deserve. So we're going to give you this benefit, or we're going to chip away at this management prerogative and give it to you, the union. And so that's the sort of the path by which police unions have become so strong. But I think I know we are at a crossroads. We are at a point where we've got to look at the role of police unions and how that power is being used. My union, I call it my union. It certainly was not my union, but the union that represented rank and file police officers in Seattle, Seattle Police Officers Guild, was a very strong and remains a very strong police union. They're not stronger, however, as they were reminded by a federal judge, than the Constitution. So it's important, I think, to recognize that there are limits to the power of these unions, and that given what's happening today, literally uprisings in every single state of the union since a week ago Monday. Given what's going on today, maybe there's an incentive for the union to come to the table and say, perhaps we have fought too hard against certain reforms. We would like to participate constructively in the development of those new reforms. And that's kind of my dream, where you would see citizens, rank and file police officers, elected and appointed officials from the town, all engaged in that process of fixing police.
Mr. Stamper, earlier you had mentioned, when I was asking you, well, what would you do? And you'd say, well, I would intervene. Ed, you would probably intervene too, right?
I tell myself I would. I believe I would. I say I know I would. But none of us, I've never experienced that as a, quote, civilian.
Right.
I have certainly experienced as a police officer. And I have intervened, and I'm proud to say that I've done that. I would be ashamed to say that I hadn't.
Did I lose you? Hey, Norm, did I lose you?
I'm here. Are you there?
Yeah, I thought I lost you for a second. Yeah, sorry. So we agree that intervention is on the table, okay? And you mentioned that we're in the midst of an uprising, okay? Where do we draw the line, Norm, okay, between the use of violence and property damage in response to these unrestrained killings that are on the increase every day? We go out, we peacefully march, and all the cops do is go out and buy more tanks, invest in bombs and gas and stuff, you know? Where is the line of resistance here?
Well, please understand that I became a police officer in 1966. Now, I know that's ancient history to many of your listeners, but at the time I became a cop, we were experiencing campus unrest, civil rights insurrections, and certainly anti-war demonstrations that became pitched battles between the local PD and the community, or a faction of that community. At the time, we trotted out large quantities of chemical agents, mostly CS gas, and later pepper spray and mace, and we applied liberally. And we did that as a force multiplier. That's a term of art that means basically, hey, we don't have enough cops at this intersection to stop an unlawful act from happening, so let's declare what's going on, an unlawful assembly, and clear the intersection. Well, if you don't have enough cops to keep that from happening in the first, the unlawful activity from happening in the first place, you don't have enough cops to clear it. So that's sort of the history of why chemical agents became so popular and so common throughout the country. And we have, in my judgment, and I've presided over this, so it's point the finger at me. We have overused chemical agents. We have used tear gas against nonviolent and indeed non-threatening protesters. I think that's just plain wrong, and I think it must stop. The city of Seattle, after the WTO, the battle in Seattle, in which I was the police chief, said they put very stringent restrictions on the use of tear gas. But for 5 years into my retirement, after having written, I should clarify one thing, Breaking Rank was the first book, and 5 years into my retirement, having written that book and out on book tour, I was coming across people who were on the streets of my city, Seattle, saying, why did you gas us? What was your reason for that? And I had the reason that I used at the time, which is the congestion of this intersection makes it completely unusable, and it's strategically and tactically key to public safety. If somebody is giving birth on the 27th floor of the Sheraton, or is in cardiac arrest, or is bleeding out from a stab wound a block away, we could not get an ambulance in there. Well, the cop in me supported that decision, maintained my support well into my retirement when I had no stake in it, until I heard from enough of my fellow Americans that what we had done was wrong. And I did, in fact, come to that conclusion. I also apologized publicly. Now, I'm not going to beat myself up for it. I know how I came to support the use of chemical agents, and it was a legitimate path, however misguided ultimately it was. But I should have learned by then. I should have learned by 1999 that using chemical agents against our fellow Americans who are peaceably assembled and expressing themselves is anti-American. And also, by the way, not very effective, because it angers people and it causes them to become even more militant. In other words, it's a provocative tactic. It works in the moment, I'll guarantee you that. If you've not been tear gassed, it's kind of hard to appreciate its effects. If you have been, and I have been several times, you'll never forget it. And you will, in fact, do what you are being told to do. It'll look chaotic as you retreat, but retreat you will. So it works. But because something works doesn't mean that we have to use it, nor should we in this context.
So, Norm Stamper, you became a cop in '66. In a little context, I was born in '62. So you've been doing this a long time, You're writing about it, talking about it, not speaking on it in interviews. So has there ever been a time in this country where we've had threats of U.S. military forces to be sent to states, where we have a military helicopter being used to disperse a crowd in D.C., where we have in D.C. right now we have these unidentified mix of soldiers and prison guards, all kinds of stuff that they won't reveal their insignia where they're employed. This is kind of extreme. We're in a very extreme situation here.
I agree. The short answer to your question is no, I've never seen anything like it. I've seen a couple of moments in our history that have come close after the riots in Los Angeles in the early 90s and after 9/11 as well. But that was more precautionary. And people could actually understand that. We are under attack. We are at war. Well, the tendency to label conflict between community and police, however pitched and painful it is to watch it on TV news, does not mean that we're at war with our own people. And I think it is a huge mistake. And so does pretty much everybody in the military, from everything that I'm able to glean over these last few days, also concluding that it's a big mistake.
And we all thought that we had Posse Comitatus Act, that this wasn't allowed, but now we hear there's some kind of loophole, that Trump found. He sent some guy there to find, some insurgency act. So what do we do?
It comes down to, I think, political agenda, and I don't even disparage that so much as just recognize the reality of it. I may think the politics stinks to high heaven, but and I do, but I would also say that leadership is a function really of power, much less authority. So if you've got a powerful leader who's able to bring people together, the various warring forces together in some fashion to say, look, what we're doing now is not working. We need strategies and tactics, equipment, weapons, policies that do work. And right now, that's not our reality. So how do we move from where we are now to a better place? And that is fundamentally a political process. And I think in invoking the military or almost as bad, having the commander-in-chief talk to cops about beating people up is exactly the wrong message. I think that's very unleaderlike, and it is very harmful, I think, to let's say a police officer who says, I was just doing what the president said I should do, is punch him in the face. Well, yeah, try that in my city and you're fired.
But the thing is, Norm Stamper, is that it's going on unchecked. You know what I mean? He's doing it. We don't have this leadership, this leader that's going around. We don't have that. So what should the average person be doing right now to resist this?
Well, I will go back to my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm a creature of the planet. I'm an American citizen. I have strong political views. Some of them have crept out, I think, in this conversation. But the bottom line is I come from a law enforcement background, and my belief is that what the people can do is stand up and assert themselves as Americans. The police in America belong to the people, not the other way around. And if the police in your town or mine are acting as if they are in charge of public safety and that they will call the shots, make all the decisions, they're speaking that into a vacuum that needs to be filled by aroused, organized, mobilized citizens who say, we want safe streets, we want safe schools, for God's sakes, we want safe homes, we want to see an end to domestic violence and sexual assault and child abuse, we want to see an end to predatory crimes, we don't want protesters smashing windows and looting small businesses and large. We don't want police cars torched. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is creating a genuinely civilized society in which public safety carries a very high priority and on a par with constitutional guarantees. So what we want is effective, lawful law enforcement. And we get that through this partnership, not from the police acting unilaterally.
No, we had John once before, and we had a great discussion going into really the solutions to all these problems, and even like the minor day-to-day problems with contact with the average citizen with police. This is before we were in a crisis situation like we are in today. But when I had John last time, so many people contacted me, and he says, Ed, you got to get him back to talk about Kurt Cobain. Because I know you've made some statements about Kurt Cobain. So do you think you would have enough information or enough to discuss about Kurt Cobain for an entire show?
I would have enough to discuss Kurt Cobain's death, the police department's response to it, what I have heard since, which is an awful lot. I do not consider myself an expert on the homicide, and I'm using that term homicide once again to suggest the death of a human being. But in this case, our position, official position, was not at the hands of another, but by his own hand. Others see it differently, and I've had many rich conversations with those who believe that Kurt Cobain was murdered and did not commit suicide. I'd be delighted to talk about it, understanding, the limitations that I would present as a guest on your show, but I'd be honored to do that.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Norm Stamper, the author of the book Breaking Rank, A Top Cop's Expose of the Dark Side of American Policing, and another one is To Protect and Serve, How to Fix America's Police. And you can find them at normstamper.com. Norm, we got about 1 minute left. What do you want to leave us with?
I want to plug Law Enforcement Assistance Partnership. I'm sorry I didn't do this earlier. I'm a very proud member of the advisory board of this organization. It used to be called Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Took a strong position on the drug war and how we could find a healthier, safer, better way to approach the issue of drug abuse in this country. But it is now Law Enforcement Action Partnership, and it is fully engaged on the issues that we're talking about. So it's LEAP, L-E-A-P, Law Enforcement Assistance, Law Enforcement Action Partnership. And at some other point, maybe we can talk about that as well. It's a wonderful organization.
Well, also, too, I'll be doing a live show tonight by myself for about an hour, so I'll plug it in for you again, too, as well as your books.
Thank you very much.
I love you. You're a great guest, man. I really appreciate this. It's such a...
Thank you.
It's an honor to have you. Norm Stamper, thank you so much. Good night.
Pleasure. Good night.
And now a word from our sponsors. OppermanReport.com. Hey, do you like what you're hearing? Do you like the work that you see us doing here at Opperman Report? You can support that work by becoming a member at OppermanReport.com. And as you have access to over 200 exclusive shows and interviews that you can't find on YouTube or Spreaker or iHeart or iTunes or KYAH. You can't find them anywhere else online, exclusive to our member sections, to our members. Also, too, there's images, videos, documents, court docs. And don't forget, you can hear your ad played here on the Opperman Report, reach hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people on a daily basis because the show is repeated every day all over the world. Contact me at operatreport@gmail.com and I'll give you a good deal on advertising rates.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents, they handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. PureSoapFlakes.com. 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.